My name is David Parker. I was born in Florence, Italy, in a quiet neighborhood where the bells of the Duomo marked the rhythm of our days. Life, for me, had always been rooted in logic and reason. As a geophysicist, I was trained to observe the world through the lens of data, evidence, and scientific method. I had spent most of my adult life measuring the Earth's tremors, reading the hidden signals beneath the crust, and translating natural mysteries into numbers and models. That was my world, structured, explainable, and solid. I never considered myself an atheist, but faith was simply not something I entertained. God, the soul, eternity, those were ideas I regarded with polite respect, like traditions handed down by generations, beautiful in their symbolism, but empty of real substance. I didn't mock religion. I just didn't need it. I had equations, instruments, and seismic graphs, and that was enough. In the warmth of my home in Florence, among the smell of old books, espresso, and the faint echo of street musicians playing violins near Piazza della Repubblica, I felt content. My wife Anna, who passed away 10 years ago, had been the only one who sometimes challenged my beliefs. She had a quiet kind of faith, not the loud kind preached in churches, but the kind that lived in her gestures, her silence, her unwavering kindness. After she was gone, I buried myself deeper into my work, into facts, into layers of the earth that wouldn't ask me to believe, only to observe. It was this devotion to science that led me, in early 2023, to accept a mission to Antarctica. A group of international researchers had been tracking a strange electromagnetic anomaly buried deep beneath the ice sheet. The signals were rhythmic, persistent, and unlike anything we'd ever cataloged. Some thought it could be a new geothermal phenomenon. Others speculated about magnetic resonance linked to subterranean movement. I was skeptical of the wilder theories, but the mystery intrigued me. I joined the team without hesitation. The cold of Antarctica is not just physical, it's spiritual. It strips you. It doesn't care who you are or what you believe. After a few days on the base, surrounded by silence and whiteness so complete it made you forget the world existed, I began to feel a kind of emptiness. Not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. Like I was further away from everything I'd known. Not just geographically, but existentially. Still, I dismissed it. Probably just the isolation, I told myself. The brain invents feelings to fill silence. I kept a journal during that time, mostly technical notes, coordinates, signal patterns. But between the lines, I started recording something else. Restlessness. A strange sense that we were digging into something not meant to be touched. The others felt it too, though none of us said it out loud. We joked about it over freeze-dried meals, called it the curse of the polar night. But deep down, something had shifted. I remember one morning just before sunrise, though in Antarctica, sunrise is a vague word. I stepped outside alone. The wind howled against the metal frame of our station. I looked out over the vast emptiness, and something in me stirred. It wasn't fear. It was a kind of longing. I missed Anna more than usual. I missed the smell of morning pastries, the sound of her footsteps in our apartment, the way she hummed old Italian songs while doing laundry. I stood there in that frozen silence, and for the first time in years, I whispered a name I had long locked away. Dio. I didn't even know why I said it. The word just slipped out. Maybe it was the cold. Maybe it was the ghost of her voice inside me. Maybe it was something more. I want to take a moment here, before this story goes deeper, to say something important. If you've come this far with me, it's probably not by accident. Life has a strange way of guiding us, even when we don't see the path. I'm sharing this not to convince you of anything, but because I believe we're all connected in ways we don't fully understand. If you feel something stirring in your heart, if something in this story resonates with you, I want to invite you to be part of this community. Subscribe to this channel, give this video a like, and leave a comment with your name and city. I'd love to know who's walking this path with me. We're not just viewers, we're a community of souls searching for truth, together. After that morning, I began to pay closer attention, not just to the signals we were tracking beneath the ice, but to the silence between them, to the sense that something ancient was waiting, watching. I didn't know it then, but everything I believed, everything I trusted, was about to be shattered. It all began on February 17th, 2023, the day I died. It was the coldest morning we had registered since our arrival. The thermometer outside read -43 degrees Celsius, but it wasn't the type of cold you could simply measure. It was the kind that crept into your bones, the kind that whispered in your ears that something wasn't right. I had barely slept. My dreams had been fragmented, strange, whispers, shadows, fleeting images that vanished the moment I opened my eyes. I blamed the exhaustion, the isolation. That was easier than considering any other explanation. I pulled on my thermal suit in silence. The base was dim, the generator humming softly beneath the ice. My breath condensed on the visor of my helmet as I stepped outside to meet the team. The sky was a dull gray, thick with silence. We were scheduled to drill deeper into a new area where the signals had intensified. The night before, our instruments had captured something unusual, a rhythmic pulse that repeated every 73 seconds. It wasn't geological, it wasn't random, it felt intentional. As we began operations, the drills bored into the ice with mechanical precision, biting through ancient layers that hadn't seen the light of the sun in millennia. But something was wrong. Our GPS glitched, the coordinates jumped erratically, and our communications began picking up static, then faint whispers. At first, we thought it was interference, but the whispers didn't sound mechanical. They sounded human. Yet, none of us were speaking. By 11:40 a.m., we were in position, and I moved closer to the main shaft, inspecting one of the seismic monitors. The wind had died down completely, which was odd for the region. Everything felt still, like the air was holding its breath. Then it happened. At exactly 11:42, the ground beneath my feet gave way, not in a crack or tremor, but in a collapse. Like the earth itself had exhaled, and I was pulled down into its lungs. The ice shattered like fragile glass. I didn't even have time to scream. My body fell into darkness, and for a moment, there was nothing but the rush of air and the deafening silence inside my head. Then, stillness. No pain, no panic, just peace. I hovered above myself, watching my body twisted and broken, half buried in snow and debris. I knew it was me, but I felt detached. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't even cold. It was like being wrapped in a blanket of light, held by something I couldn't explain. And that's when I saw them. They stood silently at the edge of the fissure, figures in radiant white. They weren't human, but they weren't frightening. They glowed with a presence that spoke directly to my soul. They didn't need to talk. I knew, somehow, that they had been waiting, watching, preparing, and then I felt the pull. It was as if something invisible but immense had taken hold of me, lifting me gently from the earth, drawing me upwards into a light that was more than just brightness. It was life, warmth, memory, and music all at once. I wasn't walking. I wasn't flying. I was being carried. The tunnel I moved through wasn't made of stone or air. It was light that breathed and pulsed like it was alive. The deeper I went, the more I felt stripped of everything that had once mattered. Titles, logic, doubt, pride. All that remained was awareness and awe. And then I heard the voice. It didn't echo. It didn't shout. It entered me like a wave, gentle but overwhelming. David. He said my name. The moment I heard it, I knew. I didn't need a face. I didn't need proof. I knew it was Jesus. And in that instant, everything inside me broke. Not with pain, but with release. Every wall I had built through a lifetime of skepticism crumbled. I felt seen, not just as a body or a mind, but as something eternal. He saw every fear I had ever buried, every sin I thought no one knew about, and yet his presence was nothing but love. Then he spoke again. What you are about to see must be shared. That's when I knew. I wasn't here for myself. This wasn't a reward. It was a revelation. Friend, if your heart feels touched right now, if you're reading this and feeling something you can't explain, I want you to know this message reached you for a reason. You are loved, you are seen, and your soul matters. Please take a moment to like this video and comment Amen below as a public way of saying, yes, I received this blessing. And if you feel comfortable, tell us which city you're in. We want to pray for you by name, from wherever you are in the world. This community isn't about numbers, it's about hearts, and your heart is welcome here. As Jesus spoke those words to me, the light around us shifted. I began to feel a new kind of awareness, as though my eyes were opening for the very first time. Something vast, something ancient, was waiting to be shown. The light around me thickened, not in weight, but in presence. It had color, though I couldn't name it. It had sound, yet no instrument had ever played it. And it had memory. My memory. I could feel my entire life behind me like a river I had walked along. Every step illuminated not with regret, but with understanding. I was still me, and yet I was more than I had ever been. Jesus stood beside me, not as a figure of legend or painting, but real, tangible. His presence was undeniable, filled with power, yet gentle enough to cradle the deepest wounds in my heart. I never saw his face fully, not with earthly eyes, but I knew him. Just as I knew that I didn't need to speak to be heard. There were no clocks here, no sun, no concept of time. And yet, everything was ordered, purposeful, alive. We walked, or moved, together side by side, across a kind of ground that was not earth, not air, not anything I had known before. It shimmered with energy, and I could feel it respond to us with every motion. It was like creation itself recognized his presence. The silence was sacred, not empty. And with each step, a deeper peace sank into me. We came to what looked like an opening in the light, like a veil gently swaying. Jesus turned to me and without words asked if I was ready. I didn't answer with my mouth, I didn't need to. He knew. I trusted him completely. We passed through. On the other side, I saw something I wasn't prepared for, a landscape so vast, so intricate, so breathtakingly designed that every part of my scientific brain screamed in wonder. It wasn't heaven, not in the way people imagine it, but it was clearly not Earth either. It was a place between places, a realm of revelation. Massive walls of ice towered in the distance, far larger than anything I had seen in Antarctica. But they weren't jagged or chaotic. They were symmetrical, crafted, as if someone or something had built them with precision beyond our comprehension. They pulsed faintly, as though alive with energy. Jesus looked at them, his expression somber. These walls were placed here for a reason, he said, the words echoing inside my soul more than my ears. And soon, the world will seek to break them. I felt a shiver, not from cold, but from something deeper. A warning. I opened my mouth to speak, to ask what he meant, but I didn't need to. The vision around us shifted again, effortlessly, like pages turning in a book not written by man. One moment we stood before the towering ice. The next I was no longer viewing it as a man, but as something higher, outside time, outside space. I saw the earth beneath me and the ice sheets from above, and then something below them. Structures, dark, sprawling formations buried under layers of untouched snow and ancient rock. They were vast, impossibly vast, not geological, not natural, built, Cities, temples, machines. I couldn't tell, but they pulsed with a kind of energy that made the air vibrate, even in this vision. And within those structures, something moved. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Jesus' voice broke through again, steady and sorrowful. They were sealed long ago, for a reason. That reason wasn't told to me in words, but I felt it in my chest like a storm trying to rise. These weren't just forgotten ruins, they were warnings, prisons, and the ice was not just climate or coincidence, it was a lock. Yet, I saw people, scientists, researchers like myself, drilling, digging, mapping, celebrating, unaware of what they were about to unleash. Their joy echoed in news broadcasts, in headlines celebrating the greatest discovery of the century. They believed they were rewriting history, but I saw what they couldn't. Beneath their feet, shadows moved. At first I thought they were animals, shapes distorted by distance. But as the vision pulled me closer, I realized they were neither beast nor man. Crawling forms dark as obsidian, with limbs that bent in unnatural directions, eyes that shimmered with hunger. Not for flesh, but for spirit. The weight of it hit me like cold steel. These things were not new. They were ancient, older than humanity, older than Eden, and they were waking up. I turned to Jesus, my heart pounding in a way that I hadn't thought possible in this realm. He met my gaze, not with fear, but with sorrow deeper than oceans. They believe they are unlocking knowledge, he said, but they are unleashing a great deception. And then, like a thread pulled through time, I saw the beginning of something catastrophic. I saw what would happen next. The vision around me darkened, not in a way that suggested evil, but in a way that prepared my spirit for something weightier, something older than comprehension. The light that had once embraced me like a warm sea faded into a softer glow, revealing a new scene. I stood, somehow both present and invisible, in the heart of one of those hidden structures buried deep beneath Antarctica's ice. Its walls weren't made of stone or metal, but of a material I had no name for, something ancient, smooth, and almost breathing. Symbols shimmered faintly across every surface, not etched, but woven into the very fibers of the walls. They pulsed like veins, alive with meaning I couldn't decipher but instinctively knew were not meant for human understanding. The architecture defied logic. Angles curved, corridors folded into themselves, and space seemed to expand and contract as I tried to perceive it. And then, they appeared. Not all at once, but in movements, shadows that bled into form, beings that did not walk, but glided. They had no faces, only outlines, like smoke trying to imitate flesh. And yet, despite their formlessness, their intent was crystal clear. Malice, deception, dominion. I felt the pressure of their presence, like standing at the edge of a void that whispers your name, not to call you, but to claim you. They are not of your world, Jesus said, his voice cutting through the rising dread. They were never meant to be part of it. I turned to him. His face was still a blur to me, but his eyes, oh, those eyes, held the grief of ages. He did not fear them, but he mourned what they represented. He mourned for us. They were cast down long before your time, sealed, buried, hidden, not by accident but by divine order. The vision shifted again. I saw men and women in lab coats celebrating breakthroughs. I saw world leaders at podiums announcing a new age of discovery. The structures had been uncovered, and the world rejoiced. What I saw next, I will never forget. These beings, once hidden, were now walking among us, not in their true form, but cloaked in beauty, intelligence, allure. They offered cures to diseases, solutions to climate crises, access to untapped energy. They extended life, promised peace, and the world welcomed them. They were seen not as invaders but as saviors. But I could see what others couldn't. Behind their smiles were fangs. Behind their light was emptiness. Each person who accepted their gifts, who signed agreements, wore their marks, trusted their science, began to fade. Not physically, spiritually. I saw it. I felt it. Their souls dimmed, like candles smothered under glass. They walked and spoke and laughed, but their connection to God had frayed, unraveling thread by thread until only silence remained. "These are not gifts," Jesus whispered. "They are chains." I saw churches celebrating their arrival. I saw preachers twisting scriptures to welcome their message. I saw children being raised in a world where these entities were called friends, teachers, light bringers. But I saw behind the veil. And then the vision changed again, one final time. A great crowd, millions upon millions, gathered in a colossal square. I could tell it wasn't just one place, it was all places. Rome, New York, Tokyo, Cairo, different nations, different tongues. And yet, all were looking at the same screen, the same stage. A figure stood there, not one of the entities, but a human, charismatic, powerful, worshipped. And beside him stood one of the shadow beings, cloaked in radiant light, its presence falsely divine. The crowd roared in praise, their hands raised, their eyes glazed, their hearts open. "They will come disguised as light," Jesus said, "and many will follow." And then, the crowd began to kneel, each one willingly surrendering, not to God, but to them. I wanted to scream, to warn them, to shout the truth. And then Jesus turned to me, his voice tender but urgent. "You must tell them." This time, his gaze pierced deeper than before. "Tell them what you have seen. Warn them. Many will not listen, but some will. And the ones who do, those are the ones I will gather." If you're reading this now, and something inside you is stirring, don't ignore it. We are not meant to walk blind in a world that offers false light. If your heart is trembling with recognition, let that be your sign. Please like this video and comment Amen below if you feel the truth of this message speaking to your soul. And let us know the city you live in. We would love to pray for you, to lift your name in our hearts as part of this journey. We are more than strangers. We are a family of faith bound not by sight but by spirit. The vision began to fade then, the world of illusions peeling back, and I felt the warmth of Jesus begin to draw me toward something else. A moment of return was coming. A mission was being placed in my hands. The light faded slowly, like the final notes of a sacred song dissolving into silence. I was no longer in that place of visions and warnings. I was somewhere else, somewhere quieter, a space between realms where eternity whispered and time no longer mattered. Jesus stood beside me, not distant, not lofty, but near, as close as breath. He said nothing at first. His eyes, deep, sorrowful, and eternal, searched mine. I felt like a child again, small before something infinite yet safe, unjudged. His presence wasn't just holy, it was home. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Not because I lacked words, but because I had nothing worthy to say. Everything I thought I understood about the world, about reality, had been undone. And in its place was a truth too large to fit inside my old mind. Finally, he reached out and placed his hand near my heart, not touching, just close enough to feel its fire. Not a physical fire, but one that moved through my soul like light through stained glass. It didn't burn, it illuminated. "You were chosen to see," he said, his voice both thunder and whisper. "But seeing is not enough. Now you must speak." I nodded. He showed me a map, not drawn with ink, but made of light and pain and prayer. Across it I saw cities, towns, names written in flame: Florence, Milan, Palermo, Naples, small villages and distant provinces. And beyond Italy, I saw other nations. People kneeling in secret, others crying out in crowded squares, all of them searching, some knowingly, others without words, for the truth. They are waiting, he said, not for you, for the message. It was not about me. It never had been. I was only a vessel, a voice, a witness. You must return, he continued gently, and you must tell them what you've seen, not as fear, but as love. That sentence undid me. I had seen horror. I had seen deception wrapped in beauty, evil disguised as enlightenment. But Jesus made it clear this was not a message of doom. It was a message of mercy. Warn them not to terrify, but to awaken. Tell them not to condemn, but to invite. Show them not judgment, but the door. The door. I saw it then, behind Jesus. It wasn't grand, it wasn't made of gold or carved in splendor. It was simple, wood, weathered, just slightly open, enough for light to pour through the crack. He looked toward it. His voice grew quiet. Soon it will close. I didn't need an explanation. I knew. There was a window of grace, a moment for souls to turn. But it wouldn't stay open forever. And then he turned to me again, closer than before. You must not stay silent. I felt the weight of that sentence settle into me, not as a burden, but as a calling. It wasn't about preaching. It wasn't about convincing. It was about truth, about offering what I had seen so others might choose. Then, from behind me, I heard something stir, a sound I recognized, though distant, machines, voices, a monitor beeping. The world of flesh was calling me back. My body, broken and cold, waited for me beneath a ceiling of steel and fluorescent lights. Before I turned to leave, I asked, without words, will I remember all of this? Jesus didn't answer. He didn't need to. Instead, he smiled, not with lips, but with presence. A smile that reached through the sorrow. A smile that told me I wouldn't carry this alone. And in that final moment, he spoke once more. You are my voice now. Speak gently. Speak boldly. Speak while the light still shines. Then, like wind through a canyon, the vision dissolved. I fell. Through silence. Through shadow. Through memory. And then, breath. Gasping. Burning. My lungs pulled air like it was fire. My eyes shot open to blinding white light. Shouts. Hands. Machines beeping wildly. I was back. But I wasn't the same. Voices echoed around me, blurred, urgent, hands pressed against my chest, cold pads, a voice calling my name, machines chirping like panicked birds. Then a gasp, my gasp. Like being born again, air surged into my lungs with violence and mercy all at once. I blinked. Faces hovered over me. My team, pale with shock, eyes wide, some with tears already falling. A doctor shouted something I couldn't understand. My body trembled as warmth rushed back into my limbs. I was alive. Later, I learned I had been clinically dead for 12 minutes. No heartbeat, no brain activity, nothing. And yet, I had returned. They tried to explain it. Hypothermia slowing the body, a rare phenomenon of survival. But I knew. I had seen the truth. I had walked with him. I had been sent back with a mission that was far beyond scientific rationale. I spent the next weeks recovering, physically at least, but my soul had no interest in returning to who I had been. The old David, the geophysicist who believed only in what he could measure, was gone. In his place stood a man undone and rebuilt by light. When I returned home to Italy, I walked the streets of Florence differently. The Duomo bells seemed to carry messages now. Every elderly hand I greeted at the morning market, every child playing in the alleys, every tired soul on the tram. I looked at them and saw not just faces but eternity echoing behind their eyes. I began to speak, at first in whispers, one-on-one, quietly, but then louder, more boldly. I told my family. I told strangers. I told anyone who asked why I seemed different. I told them everything, not for fame, not to convince, but because the truth has weight, and when you carry it, you must set it down somewhere. You must offer it. And now I offer it to you. I don't know your story. I don't know your scars. But I do know this. You were meant to hear this. Not later. Now. Because the time is short and the door is still open. There is more than this world. There is more than what we see. And beneath the noise of news and technology and fear and distraction, there is a voice calling your name, gently, patiently, the same way he called mine. If you felt something stir while hearing my testimony, don't let that flame die. Please like this video and comment Amen below. It may seem like a small act, but it's a declaration, a step, a light in the dark. And if you feel moved, tell us the city you live in. We will pray for you. Not generically, but by name, with intention. This is not just a video. This is a community, a family of souls awakening together. And if you want to continue this journey to receive more messages, more truths revealed through the lives of those who have touched the divine, click on the next video that's appearing now. It holds something sacred, something that may change your life as mine was changed. A revelation waiting just on the other side of your decision. Thank you for listening. Thank you for allowing my testimony into your heart. Amen.